Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pendulum Friday. Thank you very, very much for being here at Soulprint. To my new subscribers, welcome. I'm delighted to have you join our community. So just before I get started with Pendulum Friday, sometimes us Canadians don't do a very good job of tooting our own horn. So I'm just going to take a minute and toot our horn. Mostly, I can't even it's not all about all of Canada. It is about Gander, Newfoundland. Now, some of you people may recognize that name because on 9/11, when planes were diverted, there were literally thousands of people who ended up making emergency landings in Gander because they couldn't go into U.S. airspace. The fine folks of Gander literally put up with thousands of people for several days. They brought them into their homes. They fed them. They just took care of them until they could, carry on and continue their trip. Well, on Wednesday night, there were two planes that were making their way to St. John's, and they had to be directed or redirected back to Gander. But the weather at St. John's was terrible, and so the assistant manager of one of the hotels, they had enough hotel rooms to accommodate the people, but what she did was she put out a post saying, we have like 100 people that need to get from the airport to the hotels. She posted that at 10:03 p.m. Within an hour, all of those people were in their hotel rooms. The people of Gander just jumped in their cars, took off, got to the airport, and then ferried these people to the hotels where they had rooms waiting. Um, that's that's just an amazing example of the Canadian spirit and the Canadian attitude. And you can bet none of those volunteers didn't take anything for it. They just did it because it needed to be done. So, yay, Gander, Newfoundland. Way to go. All right. Let's get started with our first Pendulum Friday of 2026. I hope everybody has started to, slowly recover from the holidays. And and we can just carry on. Joyce has done the questions for this week, so thank you very much, Joyce. And Brilliant Beth will be doing them next week. So just a heads up, Beth is going to be taking care of those questions, and she does a fabulous job, just like Joyce. Okay, here we go. The first couple questions looks like they're Canadian questions. Here we go. Will Canada have half F-35, half Gripen, or all Gripen jets? These things are part of the military. So let's ask. Is Canada going to end up having 100% Gripen jets? No. Okay, so the way I understand it is the F-35s, which were coming out of maybe Bombardier, but they were coming out of the States. There have been nothing but issues with them. The prices keeps rising and rising. And part of the problem is that the technology or the updates for the technology would be coming out of the United States. And somehow that just doesn't feel as safe and secure as it used to. But I think some of the F-35s are like in mid-manufacture or have been delivered. So it can't be 100% Gripen, but they have shifted, the Canadian government has shifted to these Gripen jets. I'm not sure where they're from, Switzerland or somewhere. Anyways, will Pierre Poilievre be ousted from the Conservative Party? God, one can only hope so. Is he going to lose? He can't be ousted from the party because he has a riding now, but he certainly can be replaced during the leadership convention at the end of January. So let's ask this. Is Poilievre going to hold on to his position as leader of the opposition? That would be a no. And that's a pretty strong no. Um, the person who is sort of also running, I guess you could say, is a gentleman named Jason Kenney. He was the conservative leader here in Alberta. He was the premier of Alberta. Very conservative. So, one way or the other, you still are dealing with sort of that mentality. Will Jamal Gavani, I have no idea who this is, be a thorn in Prime Minister Carney's side? I probably should have looked up to see who this Jamal guy is, but let's just ask the question. Is he going to be a problem? Oh, that's a pretty strong yes. So whoever he is and whatever he's doing, Carney can expect him to be a bit of a pain in the butt. Oops. Okay. I was listening to a podcast on Energy Media where a Dr. Paul Franks in Alberta was being interviewed. He warned that the Alberta healthcare system has already collapsed. It's not in a full collapse, but man alive, it is in bad shape. Part of the reason for that is because Danielle Smith, our premier, is bound and determined to make Alberta not a part of the Canada Healthcare Act, but independent. And, that, of course, means it's not going to fly, but what it's done is created some real problems. We had a gentleman, like a 35-year-old guy, who was in one of the emergency wards in a hospital in Edmonton, just like this past week. He died. He just literally died waiting for somebody to come and see him. So there are problems. You can't sugarcoat this, but frankly, it's still better than what our neighbors to the south have, in my opinion. So, will Danielle Smith call an early election? So this is a bit of a tricky question because Danielle Smith there is a recall going on with her. So if she is successfully recalled, she has to have an election in her own riding, just to maintain her position. I just want to narrow this down a little bit. Is Danielle Smith likely to call an election in the year 2026? Okay, that's a yes. If she loses her riding, which is what the recall is about, she will not be able to be premier. And so at that point, she would have no choice but to call an election. Will Albertans begin to wake up as more people continue to die needlessly, as Dr. Paul Franks explained is already happening? Okay. I didn't hear this thing, but you know what? When you've got somebody from the Alberta Medical Association, they're not going to get on the air and say, well, it's bad, but it's not that bad. We're coping. They're going to say it's a disaster because that is, and I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that that's the message they want to get out there. I don't know that people in Alberta are not aware of it. I think that there is only, under the current government, there's sort of only so much that can be done. And honestly, the doctors, the medical staff, they're in a really hard place because she is just determined to destroy the Alberta healthcare system. So I guess let me ask that question this way. Are more people going to become aware and reactive to the declining medical care in Alberta? Okay. 26-year-old man was arrested in the east side of Cincinnati for breaking some windows at Vance's house on the east side of Cincinnati, as well as a window of a Secret Service police close as a window of a secret service. Police closed down streets nearby when Vance was in town, but they had already gone back to BC. The young man has been charged with vandalism. He damaged cars and broke 4 windows. Was the suspect's intention political versus mental, emotional stress, some kind of an issue? Okay, so was it a political statement? Okay, yes, but I don't think that was all of it. Was there also a component of um, mental instability or the need to simply damage stuff? Okay, that's also part of it. So yeah, you gave me 3 options, and basically the pendulum saying yes to all 3 options. Will Trump have the audacity to make a move on Greenland? Okay, as of right now, we're getting a fairly strong no. So, this is the thing. Greenland is attached in some way. I'm not exactly sure how, but it is attached to Denmark. Denmark is part of NATO. Um, Going after a NATO ally would trigger a NATO ally response. And I don't think he's quite up for that. Okay. This person has a very clever nickname for 45. It's called Pedolini. I kind of like that, actually. It took me a moment to catch. But anyway, so it's 45. Was heavier than usual this weekend. It looked as though they are now trying to cover jaundice and not doing such a great job at it. Is he experiencing late stage kidney or liver failure? I'm going to just reword that a little bit because the late stage, um, I think almost sort of narrows it down too much, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So the question becomes, is he experiencing kidney or liver failure? So yes. If you hear the dog barking, God bless Atlas, eh? They are grading our streets right in front of our home here. Um, we have had in this part of Alberta, we have had in the month of December, we had more snow in the month of not more snow, double the amount of snow we had last December. There is just snow all over the place here, and we had some really cold temperatures. So the graders are out, the dog's barking. I apologize if it bugs you and or sets off your own dogs. Okay. Will the election fraud come out from 2024? Okay. So here we go. Interesting. I was having lunch with a girlfriend of mine before I came to do this. And we were talking about it, and I was saying, there's already enough information out there that there were some significant shenanigans. I mean, Trump admitted without Elon Musk, he wouldn't have won. Elon Musk has, made reference to the fact that without him, 45 wouldn't have won. There are different investigations being conducted. I think personally, energetically, when I look at the situation, what I see is more a matter of there is an awareness that um, there were some shenanigans going on. The problem is that there isn't a way, according to the Constitution, from what I can understand, to reverse it. Because it's not just a matter of, dragging a 45 out of the office and shoving, Kamala into the office. This is about the entire election would have to be redone, because how many representatives, how many senators are sitting in their seats because people voted for them because they were staunch 45 supporters. I think when I ask, the answer I get is this. It was determined, not proven, but determined, that he independently could cause less damage than trying to completely redo an election without any system in place to make that happen. Now, I know that doesn't make a lot of you happy. I know on my last video, I made a comment about, they elected him once and then they elected him again. And so people aren't going to be quite so quick to think that, it's all good at the States when he's gone. And I got a lot of pushback from that and a lot of comments that he didn't win. Well, you're probably right. But he's in the office, and who's supposed to come and drag him out? The FBI? The Department of Justice? Who's going to do that? And so I think that even if information comes out, it is not going to get the kind of attention that would create some sort of a massive movement. What I'm being told energetically is that the better way for him to leave, assuming he continues to breathe, is mass protests about his policies, what he's doing, etc. He is also so damaging his own supporters that his popularity is underwater. We know that, but his own supporters are starting to jump ship. And that's going to, in some ways, be a cleaner way to get him gone. All right. Again, I'm not saying he won fair and square, but energetically, whenever I ask, that's sort of the answer is, there isn't a way to basically reverse it, because it's not just one political position. And according to the Constitution, as near as I understand it, that's what the midterms are for. I'm sorry if that makes you upset. As a Canadian, it makes me upset for you. But don't shoot the messenger. That's the energy. That's the message I'm getting. Will Elon Musk be held legally accountable for election interference regarding the American elections? Okay, so the answer right now is no. What I'm hearing is that as long as Republicans hold power, so that's not only about 45 being in office, that's about the Senate and the House, although the House is down, I think, to like one vote difference or something. They're not in good shape. But if he gets held responsible somewhere down the road, it's going to be as a result of a Democratic government. Okay, the Democrats being in control and of all three branches. Will Vance be removed from the VP office before Trump leaves office? No. Okay, so he's an idiot and nobody likes him. He keeps sticking his foot in his mouth, I think, or maybe it's intentional. But again, the president gets to pick the vice president. So again, energetically, there's a far better chance of him being elevated to the office of president and then impeached. Right now, that's the energy. Again, sorry if I'm upsetting you. Do you see F-45 and Vance both getting impeached? Yes, I do. Yes, absolutely. Strong yes from the pendulum, but not at the same time. Okay? One right after the other, if that happens. Since Russia believes Alaska belongs to them, when do you think they will do what Trumpy did and take over? Okay. I'm not so sure that Russia thinks Alaska belongs to them. What they think is that the Arctic belongs to them. The vast majority of the Arctic landmass is Canadian. So, I mean, Alaska is just a state that kind of hangs out above British Columbia. But the Arctic itself is a huge, huge area, and that's where there are all kinds of rare earth minerals. So, is Trump going to go after, or is Putin going to go after Alaska? It doesn't make sense. Is he going to try to go after the Arctic, which is what I actually think he thinks he should own or have? So let's see. Let's ask it this way. Is Putin going to become aggressive in terms of trying to acquire Arctic landmass that does not belong to them? Are they going to become aggressive at this point in time? Okay, that's a strong and a little bit wonky yes. So I'm going to ask, should that happen, will Canada have the support of its NATO allies? Yes. People just don't get to march into Canada and say, I'm going to take this. And even though Putin has given it a damn good run in Ukraine, and God knows, even though, 45 did what he did with Venezuela, I guess we'll see. Will the ICC, so I think that is International Criminal Courts, I think, be involved in any way with trials or judgments against the 45 administration? That's a yes. I think going into another country and basically kidnapping their leader, even if the guy was scum, that's got to be like sort of a violation of international law. Honestly. And speaking of which, have you guys heard that woman who was shot and killed, Minneapolis, was it? And Walz, whatever state Walz is the governor of right now, has said that there will be a full investigation. Apparently, on Thursday, the FBI stepped in and said, no, we're going to handle this investigation. We don't want any local police involved or local law enforcement involved. So, wow. How do you spell cover up? Again, my humble opinion. Okay, and the second part of the question before I got all distracted. Will NATO be involved in any way with trials or judgments against 45? Okay, we're getting a non-answer. So as most of you know, when I get a non-answer, it's because the energies aren't right or there hasn't been a determination made. As I look at the question, NATO can only become involved if there are trials or judgments against somebody who is still on the earth. If that is not the case, how are you going to go after them? Will 45 dangle a pardon. This is an interesting question. Dangle a pardon in front of Maduro if he agrees to admit Venezuela helped Biden cheat in the 2020 election. No. Was the arrest of Maduro, but I hope I'm pronouncing that right. In any case, you'll know who I'm talking about. The result of an inside job, let's find out. Apparently 25 or 21 of his Secret Service, his security team, was killed during that extraction. Was it an inside job? Okay, no, but I am hearing that there may have been a couple of people on the inside who were sharing some information. Maybe location or stuff like that. Is the vice president of Venezuela in charge of the country now? Yeah, as of right now, we're going to go with a yes. Oil executives meet on Friday in Washington to discuss Venezuela oil. Do they actually have an interest in this heavy oil? No. So either 45 and his resident idiots didn't understand that the oil in Venezuela is heavy. It's not a good quality oil, if that makes sense. And it's not like, you just go in there and you just, I don't know, shove something in the ground and start pumping out oil. It's millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to set up like an extraction system. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, as of right now, you at least want to be dragging something out of the ground that is of a good quality. All right. So right now they don't. I'm not suggesting that wasn't part of the reason that he went after them, although I think that there were a whole bunch of other ones. But again, he's surrounded by people who are ill-equipped for their jobs, not skilled in their jobs. And sometimes I think, again, I'll repeat this from a previous video, don't have the common sense that God gave a field mouse to survive the winter. Okay. So I think that oil was a good excuse. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of that meeting on Friday, saying, yeah, we're going to do something. We're going to do something. But again, it's, when a refinery shuts down, so we have a bunch of them north of me in like Fort McMurray, that area in northern Alberta. I could have the timing wrong, but I do know that if you shut one of those things down, it takes days and days to rev it all back up again and get it going again. It's not a switch. It's not a light switch. And so if it takes that kind of time to just get something that's already existing in place and functioning back up and running, how long is it going to take to actually create the entire system that is necessary? Will global enemies of 45 target his properties in retaliation for his illegal, corrupt actions around the world? Let's find out. Okay, and again, we're getting a non-answer. The follow-up question was, will the Trump organization eventually be forced to shut down due to corruption or insolvency due to lack of global interest? There we go. There's a nice, big, strong yes. Tim Wall seems to be in trouble over charges of enabling massive fraud in his state. Is he guilty? No. Will he resign as governor? No. Will he call Minnesota's National Guard in to control ICE after the shooting death of Renee Good? That was the woman's name. Right now, that's a yes. Will the murder of the woman in Minnesota by the ICE agent result in agents being in danger themselves? All right, so what you have here is a small yes. So I guess there's a potential. Will the agent that shot Renee Good be charged with murder? Well, okay, you know what? Like, probably not if the FBI is in charge of the investigation. Is he going to be charged with her murder? That's a yes, which surprises me. Is it going to be something that is a lesser charge, like, I don't know, manslaughter or something? Okay, that's a yes. Is this going to happen quickly? No. You know, this is the thing that concerns me. Um, Even when you get rid of 45, even if you impeach Vance. So, assuming Vance ascends to the presidency, then he gets to pick a vice president. And if it happens so fast that he doesn't, that puts choir boy Mike Johnson in the presidency. That puts him into the Oval Office. So listen, that is not a viable option, right? That's almost like worse. So, I mean, what could happen is when you have the Dems controlling the House and the Senate, they can do their, investigations, that kind of thing, and not let this go sort of, under the rug. But as long as you have the kind of people running Homeland Security, the FBI, et cetera, who are there now, at this point, it doesn't look like they're going to do a lot to go after him, even though current officials are saying this guy was way out of line. He just should not have done what he did. All right. Is there a special dimension? This is an interesting one, and this is the last one. Is there a special dimension or planet where the worst of the worst go when they cross over? Okay. I'm not going to use the pendulum for this because it's not a yes, no answer. They have to face, just like everybody else, a life review. Once that process is complete, and they, again, during a life review, it's not only that you review the actions that you took in your life, but you also get to review how your actions impacted everyone else or everyone who is impacted. So can you imagine 45 having a life review where he has to experience the anxiety, the stress, the worry, etc., that he created for each individual American that he caused stress to? He's going to be doing his life review like for the next couple of million millennium. Um, is there somewhere that they go specifically? It's not that they get banished somewhere, or that's what I'm being told. It's not that they like get banished and sent off to, I don't know, Pluto to live, but they are, I guess, they're put through a process where they have to become aware of the results of their actions. Understanding that there are many people, particularly readers, who have a variety of historical figures that they believe 45 has been. Well, he came back this time, so obviously he didn't get, exiled to Pluto, unfortunately. So there is this idea of, like, I almost want to say sort of like holding somebody in abeyance until their vibrational level increases. But you always, always have to remember that when it comes right down to it, the greatest gift that we received from the divine is freedom of choice. So this is not like an easy question to answer. In fact, I think I may end up doing like a channeled response for the question because it's multi-layered. And it's just not a matter of you're bad, go sit in the corner. Um, um, is Trump's latest craziness going to end in January? Okay, yeah. I gotta say, um, don't expect things to sort of calm down until March, and don't expect them to stay calm. I have reached out to Kathy Beale. We're going to be setting up a joint video, probably like right at the end of January or into the very early days of February is when we're going to be able to get together, put it together, and get it released. So look forward to that. Also, on Monday, there is a video being released that is a channeled message from Spirit. And it's very reassuring and it's very comforting. And I encourage whoever would be interested to watch that video because I think that it gives you just sort of something to hang on to. It's not all doom and gloom as we go forward. And there is also a broader awareness of the fact that there's a lot of things in a lot of places that aren't working. And Band-Aids haven't fixed it. So we're entering a time, and this is just not exclusive to the United States, we're entering a time where countries have to look at their own karma and their own actions and start to resolve and heal from behaviors that were not in the highest good. This world, whether you were talking the government, the church, is about whoever controls the most wins. And there are organizations who will literally stop at nothing to force people into a place where they are controllable. Religion does it by, again, not all, but religion does it by basically saying you have to live at this standard, you have to do this. These are the behaviors that are only acceptable. And if you don't, then, you're going to go to this other place that is known as hell. It is greed for power and greed for money that is the most dangerous elements, because for the people who seek it, it becomes all controlling. And they really do get to a point where they don't care who's getting hurt, who's getting killed, who's getting maimed, who's being destroyed. They just are looking for what they're looking for. And in different parts of the world, there are concentrations, if you will, of these kinds of people. In the United States, it's like the tech bros, right? They want to control everything. And they have kind of a dumb puppet sitting in an oval room who will give them whatever they want as long as they give him money, basically. Okay. Here we go. All right, listen up. It is the end of the first full week of January. We're in a brand new year. The energy of the year has shifted. We've gone from a numerical 9 to a 1. And that's a good thing. We've got the whole planets moving out of Pisces or out of Neptune and into the Aries sign. That's a good thing to some degree. And so change is in the wind. It's in the air. And so this is, again, the time where you need to make sure that you step back and that you ground yourself, you get yourself centered. You don't allow yourself to get flying off the handle and angry about this, that, and the other. This is a time to find center and stay centered, because the last thing any of us want to do is amplify the toxic energy, the angry energy, the rage that is already out there. So do your level best to not go down that path. It can be very, very frustrating to be angry about something that has happened and that there isn't a clear way to correct. But sometimes in life, things happen and they can't be corrected. I mean, ask anybody who has been injured in a vehicle accident and now they've got permanent issues. It's not like they can go to the store and buy new health. They're compensated with money. But money doesn't take away their pain. It doesn't take away the things, or it doesn't return the things that have been lost. And so part of staying sane, honestly, is recognizing that there are a lot of things in life that can't be reversed. What you do is you make the best of the circumstances going forward. What you do is do your level best to make sure that those circumstances can't be repeated. So things are going to get a little hairy in the next couple of months. Do what you need to do. Stay informed, pay attention, but not to the point where it's crazy making, because you're not helping anything and ultimately you're hurting yourself. All right, it's the weekend. What am I going to tell you to do? Go do something nice for yourself and somebody else. Until I see you next time, take care and be well. Bye for now.